بسم الله الحمد لله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. So I was asked to give a brief talk, inshallah, so I thought one of the most appropriate subjects would be, why do we go through tests or tribulations, the ibtila? Right? First, a mindset we should have or know that most human suffering occurs from being attached to something. Is this mic going out off and on, or can you hear me well enough? Yeah, so most human suffering occurs through being attached to something in this worldly life. And the more you're attached to something, the more you can suffer from that thing. Right? So the Muslim's mindset in general is that we have a next life that's forever. Right? So we might go through tribulations and tests in this life, but it's just temporary. If you're patient and you hold firm, the test will pass, this life will pass, and the next life is forever. Right? The whole world that you live in, no matter if you live 100 years, 1,000 years, a million years, Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, on the Day of Judgment, it will be like yawman aw ba'da yawm. It will feel as if it was a day or part of a day. Right? So you might suffer for that day. You might go through hardship, but if you're patient and you have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the next life is forever. And they said, in an authentic hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, the most luxurious or rich person of this dunya, who had everything in terms of material world and wealth and popularity and all these things, but he was not a believer. He lacked faith. He was dipped once in the hellfire, and the angels asked him, did you have any good in this world? And he said no. He forgot all the good in the world from that one dip in the hellfire. And then they took the most miserable person in the world, who suffered tremendously through poverty and loss and didn't have anything, just continuous suffering. And he was dipped once in paradise, and the angels asked him, have you tasted any hardship in this dunya, in this world? And he said no. He forgot all the pain and suffering from that one dip in Jannah. So a lot of the suffering comes from perspective. If a person, like we were talking earlier, how some people, it's not that they're trying to hide it and fake it and saying, I don't feel pain or I don't suffer. Some people really, they don't, because they have this broader perspective. Like, yes, you get emotional, you might get sad, you might suffer a little bit, but you have this faith in you that gives you strength, and you don't let it bog you down. I was in the CMU, and just to give you an example, I'm not bragging about myself, I think it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah blessed me. But I was happy in terms of I miss my family, I worried more about them, but in terms of myself, I was content. I was reading the Quran, I was working out, I met new acquaintances, I learned something, I finished memorizing the Quran, alhamdulillah. I learned a lot of stuff in prison that I would not have learned about if I was out in the world. In the same situation, another person, he cried and complained every single day, he was depressed, he was miserable. And I just had to stay away from him because I didn't want that. I don't want that negativity. You can be in the exact same situation and you have two completely different perspectives. He was focusing on all the things he was missing out on. I was focusing on all the things that I had in there. And like I said, I'm not bragging. It was a gift from Allah. He preserved me, alhamdulillah. But it's just to show you that mindset helped carry me through. And it's how you look at the world like that. The test, tribulations, ibtila, it does not discriminate. Every single human being will go through tests and tribulations. Whether you're black or white, rich or poor, young or old, you'll go through some type of test. Allah, He says, تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. The death and life were created to see who of you will be best in deeds, to test, to see you who will be best in deeds. Right? So one of the purposes of life is to be tested. Also the Prophet ﷺ, he said that a person will not pass on the Day of Judgment until he's asked about 4 things. In his life, how he spent it. In his health, how he used it. In his wealth, how he took care of it. And also how he earned his wealth. So basically everything you're going through in this world is a test, and see how you're going to act to that test. You want to be content and go to the low levels, that's upon you. You want to strive and be successful and go to the high levels of Jannah, that's good. That's better. You want to be a failure, and may Allah protect us all from it, and go to the hellfire, that's your choice as well. Right? It's just like in this dunya, when you have tests or exams in school, the more you study for it, the more you work hard for it, the higher grade you get. Right? And if you don't study, you don't prepare, then you fail, and you can't blame anybody except yourself. So this dunya, this worldly life is the same thing. The more you prepare for the akhirah, the more you take it into account and work for that goal, the higher ranks you will get. And just to give you a warning, inshallah, and a good tiding, the higher your iman is, the more you will be tested. أشد الناس ابتلاء الأنبياء ثم الذين يدينهم ثم الذين يدينهم. The most tested of people are the prophets, then those who are next in faith after them, and those next in faith after them. So the more faith you have, the more tests will come your way, right? And that's a sign of Allah's love for you. إِنَّ اللَّهَ إِذَا أَحَبَّ عَبْدًا ابْتَلَاهُ. If Allah loves a servant, He loves a person, He gives them a trial, He gives them a test, right? Because either the test comes from you being a very good person, and Allah wants to make you even higher and go in higher ranks, or you are not such a good person, and Allah wants to remind you to come back to Him. If you're a non-believer, Allah is giving you this test to say, wait a minute, maybe there's something more important in life. Maybe I have to come back and find out about who my Lord is, what the purpose of life is. If you're a believer, you might fall into sin. You might have forgotten all these gifts that Allah has given you from health and family, right, and taken them for granted. Or freedom, right? And Allah gives you this reminder, hey, these are gifts I've given to you and you never thanked me for them. Come back to me, right? So they're a gift. These tests can actually be a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if you're patient. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَالنَّقْصِ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. We will test you in fear, or a measure of fear, and hunger, and loss of wealth, and loss of life, and fruits, or your material wealth, and give good tidings to those who are patient. الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّ لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. The ones when a hardship or test comes to them, they say, verily it is from Allah, and to Allah we shall return. So when that test comes to them, the first thing the believers do is what? They remember Allah. إِنَّ لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. They remember this life is temporary. No matter how much the test comes to you, we're going back to Allah. إِنَّ لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. It's not permanent. Just hold tight. Have faith. It's going to pass. And also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, لَا يُكَلِّفُ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وَسَعَهَا. That Allah will not put a burden upon a soul that they cannot take. So any test that comes to you is something you're capable of facing. It's something you're capable of passing through, if you're patient. Right? Yes, we will have our moments of emotion, and that's normal. That's a human being. We go through that. But how do you react afterwards? How do you react to the test? That's what determines your patience or not. Right? Are you going to give up and let the test overtake you and crumble and fall and cry and complain and not change anything? Or are you going to let that setback be a setup for a comeback? Is it going to, when you fall down, you're looking up so you can get back up? Or are you just going to stay down and be miserable? Right? The person, the believer, he's always thankful and patient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he doesn't give up. He knows that Allah Azza wa Jal is the most wise. If you really are a mu'min, a believer, and you say Allah is Al-Hakim, that Allah is the most wise, Al-Alim, He knows everything, right? How can you question His tests when they come to you? If you really believe that Allah, He knows every single leaf that drops, every thought in your head, every word that you speak. He created the heavens and the earth. If you look at the universe and the signs of the universe, everything is so perfect. If the earth were to move, just a few fraction of a space, one way we would freeze to death, or the other way we could, die from being thirsty or hunger, or because of the famine and the scorched earth that would happen. Everything is in perfect proportion. So if you say Allah, He knows, He is Al-Alim, and He gives you a test, He knows it's for something that you need. Be patient. Even some of the scholars, they used to be happy when a test came to them. And I'm not saying to hope for a test. We never hope for a test. But when a test comes to them, they used to be, thinking that this is a gift from Allah. Because they are so content with Allah's qadr. Some of the stories, it's a long lecture, I don't want to bore you, but just give you a couple of examples of the sabr. Our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he faced tests from his childhood all the way through adulthood, through prophethood, into the last day. As a child, before he was even born, his first test, he lost his father. And then when he was 6 years old, the age that you finally become close to your mother, when you get to love her and know her and feel her and really know what you are, her son to her, he loses his mother. Then the next most important person, his grandfather, took care of him. At the age of 10, he lost his grandfather. Right? Loss after loss. The most, trying thing for a child is to lose his parent. Right? And the most challenging or trying thing for an adult is to lose their child. The Prophet ﷺ, he lost both ways. When he was an adult, his first sons he lost. He buried all of his daughters. Right? Then the message, he's calling people to Islam. He just wants you to believe, to go, believe in the Lord, do good, stay away from evil. He wants good for them. And his own family members, threw stones at him, just, fought against him, belittled him. And all he did is want them to go to paradise. He went to Taif, after being thrown out from his own home, and he got stoned by young fools, right? And he, made dua. Instead of, the angel came to them asking if he wanted to, us to destroy this people. He said, no, maybe from their offspring will be Muslims. He made dua for them instead. Look at the sabr, at the ibtila, right? And then, not long after what happened, he went to Medina and started the greatest civilization the earth ever seen, the Islamic civilization. From ibtila came success. He didn't give up, he kept striving. Yusuf alayhi salam was thrown into prison unjustly, just for refusing to commit adultery with the Pharaoh's wife. And he was put into prison, some say for 7, some say 10, some say more years, as an innocent person, right? Because he refused to do haram. He was patient and persevering, and Allah made him the wazir over the greatest kingdom on the earth at that time, the Egyptian civilization. Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, spent most of his life in jail, in and out of jail. And he composed some of the greatest works of Islam. The Fatawa Ibn Taymiyyah is 30 volumes long. He wrote most of that from jail. Az-Zarqashi, the same thing. He was put in a well, actually, because they were afraid that he would give da'wah in jail, so they put him in a well under the earth, basically deep in the earth. And he wrote Maqsood, which is one of the greatest works of the Hanafi fiqh. Az-Zamakhshari, same thing, placed in jail, and he wrote the tafsir that we all know. It goes on and on in the Muslim examples of the scholars and the prophets, how they suffered and they persevered, and Allah gave them victory at the end of the day. Right? So sometimes tests are a blessing. Even the non-Muslims, Thomas Edison, it said that he experimented with a light bulb over 10,000 times and he failed. Right? He failed 9,999 times. Right? And then when they used to make fun of him, every time they would make fun of him and say, you keep failing, you keep failing. He said, no, I didn't fail. I just found 9,999 ways that didn't work. And then he found the way that worked, and he became one of the most famous inventors for, inventing the light bulb. Helen Keller, she was both deaf and blind. And she actually graduated from the university and wrote some of the most influential books in American history. Can you imagine if you had no hearing and no sight from birth? Right? No, you can't hear anything, you can't see anything. And she actually graduated from college. So these tests, for people are ways that should inspire us to get through the test. Nelson Mandela, he was in prison for 30 years. They didn't even give him books. He had to break rocks. That's real prison. And he came out after 30 years, and what happened to him? He became a president of a country. Right? John McCain, the one that just died recently, that was celebrated throughout America, he was in prison and tortured. He didn't even know he was going to get out alive. And he became one of the most famous senators. These are all examples we see in our life. So through tests and tribulation, it makes you, if you're patient, to someone who is successful. Right? If you don't let it break you, if you don't let it bring you down, it will make you successful. Because the more tests and tribulations you go through, the more character you will build. You can relate to the people more. You know, I've been through prison. I can understand and feel what my brothers and sisters are going through. Right? That was a gift from Allah. If I hadn't gone through prison, I might not have felt that way. People who go through poverty, you know, they can feel sympathy with the poor. The Prophet ﷺ, he felt sympathy with the orphans because they've been through this test. So tests build character. Tests are ways for us to go to Jannah. You know, the diamond, it was a lump of coal, an ugly lump of coal. But through the pressure of the mountains on top of it, it became a diamond. Gold is not purified, is not made beautiful unless it goes through the fire. Right? So all these examples show us that the more tests you go through, the more Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He loves you, and the higher ranks you will get, inshaAllah. So be patient, persevere, never give up, and inshaAllah, may Allah protect us from tests, but if we go through them, may Allah help us to learn from them and persevere and become better and more successful. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.